All right, I've got another Zane Grey Western review here. This one is titled Wildfire. I'm going to tell you right up front. Of the three Zane Grey novels that I have read thus far, this is my favorite. I like this more than Riders of the Purple Sage, more than Desert Gold. I was pleasantly surprised by how much this story actually sucked me in. Now, this is the title Wildfire. Wildfire is the name of a horse. Okay, so there is on the introduction of this story, we get introduced to a girl named Lucy Bostel and her father. I know her father has a first name, but he's just referred to as Bostel through the whole book. So she lives with her father, who is a widower, Bostel, and he's a kind of a hard man when it comes to horses. He's very covetous towards horses. He's got a ranch and he likes to race horses, and his prized horse is named Sage King. And yeah, there's a couple of rival families that live close by to him, the Courts, and there is another family named the Creeches, with Joel Creech is kind of a creepo and has his heart set on Lucy Bostel. But he's kind of a half crazy person. So anyways, we get introduced to this whole dynamic here with this hard dude, Bostel, who likes to race horses. And anybody that's got a horse that's faster than his or whatever, that he wants, he will sell his soul to the devil to get it. He's got a real weakness when it comes to horses. But that introduces us in chapter 4. We get introduced to this other character, Lynn Sloan. Lynn Sloan is a guy, he's a cowboy that rides around and catches wild horses. And we get several chapters. Now, these were my favorite chapters of the book, chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7. I was really sucked into this cowboy, Lynn Sloan, chasing or tracking down this red horse and all the descriptions of terrain. I'm going to tell you something right now. When it comes to writing terrain, like to writing landscapes and whatnot, Zane Grey has got a real knack for it. It really sucks you in, man. I mean, just his descriptions. Anybody that's a writer, if you're somebody that's writing, okay, and you want to know how to write like landscapes and whatnot, I mean, it's just, let me read an excerpt. So, page 55. In the early morning, when all was gray and the big dark pines were shadowy specters, Sloan was awakened by the cold. His hands were so numb they had difficulty starting a fire. He stood over the blaze, warming them. The air was nipping, clear and thin, and sweet with frosty fragrance. Daylight came when he was in the midst of his morning meal. A white frost covered the ground and crackled under his feet as he went out to bring in the horses. He saw fresh deer tracks. Then he went back to camp for his rifle, keeping a sharp lookout for game. He continued to search for the horses. The forest was open and park-like. There were no fallen trees or evidences of fire. Presently he came to a wide glade in the midst of which Nagger is his horse, and the pack mustang were grazing with a herd of deer. The size of the latter amazed Sloan. The deer he had hunted back on the Severe Range were much smaller than these. Evidently these were mule deer, closely allied to the elk. They were so tame they stood facing him curiously, with long ears erect. It was sheer murder to kill a deer standing and watching like that, but Sloan was out of meat and hungry and facing a long, hard trip. He shot a buck, which leaped spasmodically away, trying to follow the herd, and fell at the edge of the glade. Sloan cut out a haunch, and then, catching the horses, he returned to camp, where he packed and saddled, and at once rode out on the dim trail. The wildness of the country he was entering was evident, and the fact that as he passed the glade where he had shot the deer a few minutes before, there were coyotes quarreling over the carcass. I mean, this is great. And he writes forests, he writes about deserts, There's a forest fire that takes place in this book, and it's just like, man, this is like really good writing when it comes to landscapes. I mean, this guy can write landscapes. So yeah, obviously Lynn Sloan, you know, ends up catching the horse. He names it Wildfire. But this Lucy, okay, I want to get back to Lucy Bostel because she's something of a horse whisperer. When it comes to horses, she's really good with them. And I mean, I don't want to spoil this book, but there is, of course, a romance develops between Lynn Sloan, the cowboy, and Lucy. But this book took some twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. I mean, it really surprised me a couple of times. It felt like the story was going in one direction and then it went totally different. And so I'm going to bump this up to a pretty, respectable score. I'd give this a 4 out of 5. Now, why don't I give it 5 stars? Because the characters are archetypal characters. They're not really deep. All right. You're not going to get like a Pulitzer Prize winning novel like Lonesome Dove where everybody in it feels fully realized. That's a 5-star book. So this is like a 4, but it was a really good 4. And it's not going to be something that's going to leave you pondering deeper questions of life or anything. It's just a good, enjoyable, escapist adventure. I highly recommend this one. It was a really good book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Zane Grey hasn't let me down yet. So, yeah, I definitely be checking out more Zane Grey novels in the future. Oh, and one more thing. I want to say something about Lucy. Lucy, one more time. Lucy is a great character. She's not just a love interest or just a damsel in distress, okay? She can hold her own. This girl, she can ride horses. She can shoot a rifle. Like I said, I was kind of surprised at the plot resolution of this book. I expected it go one direction and it went totally against what I was expecting. So check this one out. All right, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.